Thinking about what research I wanted to conduct for this presentation, I knew a strong area of interest for me is the use of self-talk. When you think about the implications of how our beliefs slash thoughts affect our emotions and our behavior, having a deeper understanding of this advantageous technique seems far-reaching. What we know from current research in the world of sports psychology is that positive self-talk increases sports performance. The concept of self-talk has been around the psychology field for decades, but it is relatively new in sports psychology. We know that positive self-talk has a cognitive effect on emotions and mood. We also understand the connection between self-talk and motivation. What I decided to focus on was a more in-depth look on the specific uses of self-talk to help determine the most effective treatment intervention for individual athletes. Therefore, my research topic asks the question, does motivational and instructional self-talk improve task performance? To refresh, motivational self-talk is when we want to psych ourselves up, and some examples of it include, you got this, or be aggressive. Instructional self-talk is a way to guide ourselves through a specific task, such as learning new skills. An example of this would be if you're a tennis player, hit out front, or my personal favorite is eye on ball. In general, it is believed that the best way to learn a new task is through the use of instructional self-talk. However, while I was looking through the research to determine my topic, I noticed that some research found evidence to support both areas of self-talk when it comes to improving task performance. So this is why I want to take a further look into the topic. I really wanted to find some qualitative research on this topic, but it proved to be difficult. What I found was a great deal of quantitative research. A number of experimental studies were conducted. In most of the studies, 2 studies were conducted in the aim of answering questions that would further illuminate the dynamics of self-talk. Affect grids were used with a 9-point scale, as well as self-talk grids. Several questionnaires were used to measure the differences between use of self-talk and not using self-talk. Actual sport-specific simulators were used in several studies to conduct and measure the differences. Additionally, I found meta-analysis, which, if you don't know what it is, it's a statistical technique for amalgamating, summarizing, and reviewing previous quantitative research. This is important as it has added compelling evidence to the growing information on the uses of self-talk. I realized during my research the reason why so many studies on self-talk have been conducted through quantitative research is due to the nature of the hypothesis the researchers are trying to answer. The improvement of skill development needs to be quantifiable, and therefore the importance of quantitative studies lies in the significance in its validity due to the nature of computing the means, p-values, standard deviations, and ultimately rejecting or failing to reject the null hypothesis. My choice based on the evidence would also lie in quantitative research. I found that within the research, there was significant evidence to predict causal relationships between the use of self-talk and performance improvement, and the relationship between motivational and instructional self-talk with task performance. Additionally, this may not be as critical, but the importance of the description of the population characteristics in these studies really show us how these tools impact particular athletes. So, some of the findings on the relationships between motivational and instructional self-talk that I found were in, most of the research, but specifically the 2 that you see here on this slide is that there was a 2-way mixed model where the MANOVA revealed that self-talk for task performance improved for the experimental group, showing a p-value that was less than 0.01, and remained stable for the control group. Additionally, the research showed that instructional self-talk appears to be superior when performing tasks requiring precision, timing, and coordination. Both instructional and motivational self-talk produce significantly better performance than a controlled condition for strength task. So it had also revealed, most of these studies revealed that there were a lot of mechanical benefits. There was a study done on motor skill development, such as vertical jump. So as you can see in the slide, there was a study on the effects of instructional and motivational self-talk on vertical jump, which they found with both of them, it led to an increased jump and height and a greater generation of impulse. Additionally, the study indicated that healthy, active individuals may enhance the display of muscular power via the use of instructional and motivational self-talk. And evidence further concluded that there was an increase in muscular power by alterations in movement when using self-talk. Both findings contributed to the improved performance in sports required power-based skills. So I also found that instructional self-talk did enhance performance for tasks involving fine execution in such sports as soccer and badminton, and strength and endurance. Both instructional and motivational self-talk were effective. When looking at how self-talk affected competition results, it was revealed that there was an effectiveness of self-talk in improving sports task performance, but also sports performance in relation to competition. The size of the improvement in practical terms for the intervention group was 1.46%, and is considerable, and one that can make a meaningful difference in competition. It also was revealed that self-talk, as we know, does affect our, moods and emotions. And what the research showed for me was that, as you can see in the slide, the research on the mechanisms of self-talk on task performance, anxiety, and confidence showed a positive correlation. Additionally, it was found that when comparing the effects of instructional and an anxiety-controlled cue on anxiety, symptoms showed that the anxiety-related cue resulted in greater reduction of cognitive anxiety rather than the instructional cue. I mention this because later on in my practical applications, I feel that, the more specific that we can be as consultants, the better that we can implement our interventions for the athletes. So I listed this as problems with self-talk. This slide is problems with self-talk. But the reason why I wanted to share this was because there was a study where they felt that by using the process of implementing self-talk, intervention during competition may be both physically and cognitively difficult for an athlete. For example, a soccer player dribbling in the open field will need to assess their position on the field, find open teammates, be aware of oncoming opponents, and make decisions to pass, shoot, or hold the ball all within a matter of seconds. And so they said that basically you wouldn't have the opportunity to be able to use self-talk, or if you did, it would just add to the level of stress. So how this topic adds to the current literature. Although there is research on the topic of how self-talk motivates and promotes confidence in athletes, it is limited in the specifics of how different types of self-talk can be more effective when applied in the context that would be best needed. Further investigations may want to ensure that motivational and instructional self-talk are clearly differentiated so that their unique effects can be empirically tested. And having a greater understanding on sport-specific needs will also help consultants develop more effective treatment options for their clients. However, during my research, I started to consider the overall concept of self-talk. Ultimately, the true effect of self-talk is about feeling confident and self-assured, and how individuals perceive that can look very different. But the end result is that confidence is, it really is about not being paralyzed by fear when things are going wrong. It gives you more energy and determination, and it gives individuals a sense of feeling in control. So I think we can begin to see that it isn't about maybe a specific way to use self-talk, but more about what works for each individual that will basically work on increasing their sense of self-efficacy. So what are the practical applications for us in using self-talk? Well, instructional or motivational self-talk. Really, what I found in this is that we need to really focus on which form of self-talk is most effective for the individual athlete. Some may find, as I said, that confidence is really important. So some may find confidence in motivational self-talk. Some may find confidence more in instructional self-talk. So we need to determine which of those is going to be most effective. Additionally, there is evidence that more specific cue words add to increase in task performance rather than, generalized phrases. So that's an important application. It's also valuable that we determine which of these techniques works best for each individual athlete, and, that we really explore both options. But most importantly, self-talk has multiple implications for athletes in both learning and improving on motor skill development, and using it for reduction of competitive anxiety. There just are so many benefits to being able to use self-talk, and that's essentially what I found overall in this research. So thank you.